We are following breaking news. A judge has ruled Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis can remain on the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump if Nathan Wade steps down as its special prosecutor. Now, the judge decided there was, quote, no actual conflict stemming from the romantic relationship between Willis and Wade, but he said the, quote, appearance of impropriety should result in one of them leaving the case. Trump and more than a dozen others are facing charges in Georgia tied to alleged attempts to overthrow the 2020 presidential election. The former president has denied any wrongdoing. Trump's lead attorney released a statement saying he does not believe the court afforded, quote, appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade. He also said he and his team will continue to use all legal options available to them to fight this case. We have a panel of guests here now to break this all down for us. CBS News investigative producer Dan Klaidman is here in Studio 57. CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman is also joining us. But let's start with CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion, who is in Atlanta. So, Nikole, you have been following this case very closely. How surprising was this decision?
Well, I think it was surprising, but also not surprising in the sense that many legal experts had speculated that the defendants, the defense in this case, those attorneys representing the former president and some of the co-defendants, that they weren't able to necessarily prove that burden of a conflict of interest. And the judge seemed to agree here. I think maybe what might have taken some by surprise is that it was kind of a split decision in the sense that the judge said that in order for the district attorney to stay on the case, that Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor, must sever ties. So I think from that standpoint, we will have to see how the district attorney responds to this ruling. We have yet to hear from her directly or from Nathan Wade, but at least for now, the case can continue once this issue is resolved.
And Nikole, I know you spoke with the former attorney for Kenneth Chesebro. He's one of Trump's co-defendants who has already pleaded guilty in this case. He slammed today's decision. Let's play some of what he said.
This is a slap on the wrist.
It's not even a slap on the wrist. You know, it's a rub on the finger, whatever the analogy is. It's not, I don't think she's going to care whatsoever, because here's the thing. If you're okay as the elected district attorney with going into court, taking an oath to tell the truth, and then perjuring yourself, you're not really going to care at the end of the day if the judge gives you, let's call it a little slap on the wrist. She's going to, I guarantee you, declare this or think this as a victory. And if I were her, I would as well.
Interesting. So, Nikole, did Grubman say whether he now regrets helping Chesebro reach a plea deal?
Well, he told me he doesn't have any regrets, and while he said that he hasn't talked to his former client, he feels that he got a pretty decent deal in terms of the plea deal that he agreed to. So from that standpoint, there doesn't seem to be any indication, at least at this point, that he or his client would reconsider that plea. But that is certainly a potential possibility for some of these other defendants who have since pleaded guilty. There were 4, you may recall. So again, that is something we'll have to watch and see how it plays out.
Dan, let me turn to you. As someone who sort of sat through, watched these proceedings unfold, you saw the different personalities involved in this case. What is your sense of the kind of reaction we might now see from Fani Willis?
Well, I think she is going to be careful in how she reacts to this. I think she'll be, maybe we'll see a statement from her. I don't think we're going to see her come out and talk to the cameras. I think what her focus is going to be on is moving forward with this case, shifting attention to the people who were indicted in this case and trying to put this whole legal soap opera behind her. I think we'll get a decision in short order about Nathan Wade. I don't think they'll drag this out. I think it is highly, I think there really isn't a choice here. Nathan Wade, is going to go at some point. The question is when and how. And the one thing I think, she's got a lot of work to do in terms of rehabilitating her own reputation. The judge, it was a very skillful and judicious decision in a lot of ways. The judge really had some very tough remarks for her. I mean, he said that, cited a tremendous lapse of judgment on her part. unprofessional manner of her testimony. And then he used this phrase that there was an odor of mendacity that hung over this case. So I think she's going to have to do a bunch of things to restore confidence in the case. I think the way she'll do it is by actually getting in the courtroom herself.
Interesting. Yeah, those are pretty forceful words that we saw from the judge. Rikki, let me ask you, the judge's decision basically is an ultimatum. Fani Willis either needs to cut ties with Nathan Wade or she loses this case. How rare is a ruling of this nature?
Well, this entire proceeding is rare. But of course, we almost never, in fact, I think I can say never, have seen this kind of stunningly reckless conduct on the part of a public prosecutor. I prosecuted cases for a number of years, and I can tell you that that was the most significant job I have ever had. And the appearance of impropriety, let alone an actual conflict of interest, is taught to every prosecutor. This is a woman who acted without thinking, or at least she thought that she could get the best of the public. She may have won this battle in the sense that she can, the word is can, stay on this case and that Nathan Wade must go. But she might have a little bit of thought about the fact that her office and her remaining on this case continues to taint the case, no matter how good a prosecutor she might turn out to be. Because the public now may not trust the process and may not trust the integrity of the case. And she brought this all on herself.
Certainly a great deal of interest and a great deal of scrutiny on this case. Rikki Klieman, Nikole Killion, and Dan Klaidman, thank you all very much.